Hi, I'm Jessica Shaw. I am one of the Singer ambassadors, and today we are making the most adorable patchwork denim bucket hat, perfect for summertime. I have a few pairs of denim jeans and a denim shirt, and they just don't fit me anymore, so I'm gonna use these to upcycle for my project. So this is a really fun project if you have some old jeans laying around and you're ready to transform them into something new. And since I'm working with denim, it's a little bit heavyweight, so I'm gonna be using my trusty Singer heavy duty sewing machine, which you already know, this is the machine I use for almost everything. Throughout the video, I'm gonna be giving you some of my favorite tips and tricks for sewing with denim or other heavyweight fabrics. So let's get started. My first tip when working with heavy duty fabrics such as denim is to use good quality sharp scissors. So I had to break out some of my good sharp scissors that I knew would cut through denim. And I started by chalking out some small squares to patchwork for my bucket hat. Now, if you prefer using a rotary cutter, these can be really great for cutting simple squares. I love using a rotary cutter whenever I'm quilting, but honestly, I am always going to choose scissors over a rotary cutter, so that's what I did for my project. I'm just cutting out a bunch of small squares and let's get ready to patchwork. Whenever I'm using denim, I like to keep a bunch of straight pins on hand. This is what I'm using to pin each of my small squares together into long rows. These pins are really going to help you perfectly match up each little square so that we're getting evenly sized patches. Now let's get ready to start sewing our bucket hat. I'm using some all-purpose polyester thread for my top thread as well as my bottom thread, and I'm using this with a universal size 90/100 needle. This will be a perfect needle for the majority of our denim stitches. So I'll go ahead and pop my thread on as well as drop my bobbin in, and we are ready to start sewing. For stitching my denim, I am just using a regular straight stitch and my length on 2.5. This is a perfect length for getting nice strong seams. I'm keeping my width on 0, my needle position right in the middle, and my tension on a 4, but you can really work with this depending on what type of fabric you're working with. These will be the perfect settings for the basic construction of the bucket hat. As you can see, we have nice strong seams that won't fall apart. And that brings us to my next tip. Before we move on to our next step, it's so important that we iron our seams, especially when working with heavy-duty fabrics. I'm using my lovely Singer Steamcraft iron, and I'm just going to start ironing these seams open, nice and flat. And I am using all the steam I can get to get these nice and flat. Now I'll put those long rows together. I'm going to arrange them however I want. To attach these, I'm going to move on to some clips. I like using clips when I'm attaching really thick fabric together, such as denim. This works a little bit easier than working with pins. Once I have my big square clip together, I can go ahead and sew all of these rows. And I'm using the same settings, same needle, and same thread as before. And for my pattern, I printed a free bucket hat pattern online, and I'm going to go ahead and cut my pieces out. For the top of the hat, I thought it would be cute to use this denim shirt that didn't fit me anymore, and I cut it right on this crisscross seam. I thought that would just look really cool. I also used this shirt for the lining pieces of the bucket hat because my denim was super thick as it was. So using a lighter weight fabric for the lining really helped not make everything super bulky. Okay, now that our pieces are cut out, I'm just going to start putting them together, right sides together, and sewing them. And as you can see on this piece, it was really thick. So I went ahead and cut that bulky piece of seam allowance off, and that helped me be able to sew everything together. Then it was time to sew the top part of my hat to the headband of the hat. And this is when we start getting into the really bulky pieces. So to help this, my next tip, I'm going to be using a hump jumper. This sometimes comes with your machine, or you can buy this attachment. Basically, as you can see, it has one thinner side and one thicker side. And the purpose of this is to keep your presser foot perfectly flat as you're sewing. So as you can see, if you were going over a really thick part of fabric, your presser foot is going to go up. And this can actually result in uneven stitches and just really wonky looking stitches. So to help that, you're going to put the hump jumper behind the foot or in front of the foot to keep it perfectly flat. And I'm going to show you exactly how this looks. This was me sewing a part that was really thick, so I lifted the presser foot and put the hump jumper in there. And this really helped me as I was sewing those really thick seams. As you can see, my seams look nice and beautiful. I loved how this patchwork was turning out. So let's slow this down a little bit. I'm going to show you on a bit better of an example here. So as you can see, I'm sewing along, and I'm reaching a point that I can feel is really thick. And look at that. You can see the presser foot go up right there. And when it goes up, it's going to create uneven stitches. So I'm going to stop right there, drop my needle into the fabric. Then I will lift my presser foot up. I'm going to take the hump jumper on the thinner part and put it right there behind my presser foot. I'll drop my presser foot down and keep sewing. And as you can see, once it got over that really thick part, the presser foot started to even out again. And I'll show you again once I get to a really bumpy part. The presser foot's starting to go up, so let's put our hump jumper in the back, drop the presser foot, keep sewing. And if you want to go the extra mile, we can actually help the presser foot stay super flat when it comes down from that hump as well. So on its way down, I'm going to do the same exact thing. Put the presser foot in the front this time and help it as it goes back down over that hump. And I'm just going to do the same exact process all around this bumpy part. And now we have the cutest little bill for our patchwork bucket hat. All that's left to do is sew on this top part. I'm just pinning it right sides together, and I'm going to sew it all around. And now to finish it off, my last tip is using some heavy duty top stitch denim thread. And since I'm using a thicker thread, I need to use a thicker needle. So I'm going to use my universal size 100/16 needle. This has a little bit bigger of an eye and it's a thicker needle. So I'm going to pop my top stitching thread on. And when I'm top stitching, I like to make my stitch length as long as it will go at a 4. And I'm going to use this gold thread all the way around the edge of my hat to do a cute little top stitch. And now our bucket hat is done. This project was so bulky and really tested the limits for my heavy duty sewing machine, but as always, it handled it like a champ. I really hope this helped if you are working with denim or heavyweight fabrics and need a few extra tips on your journey. I love how this bucket hat turned out. It's perfect for summertime, and I will definitely be wearing this all summer long. Thank you so much for watching, and happy sewing.